Welcome to Life Stories. What would you do if your child was fighting for his life and your own mother told you to leave his side, or be cut off from your family forever? This isn't just a story about motherhood. It's about the moment love becomes a weapon. It's about loyalty pushed to its breaking point. And the courage it takes to finally say, enough. You'll meet a woman who spent her entire life being told she wasn't good enough until one hospital room, one impossible choice, and one whispered promise changed everything. Stay with us, because what happens when her son opens his eyes will leave you questioning what family really means. Now, let's begin. The fluorescent lights in the pediatric ICU hummed with the same sterile indifference as the machines keeping her son alive. Emma hadn't slept in 3 days, not really. She dozed in fits, her body sagging into the stiff vinyl recliner next to Caleb's hospital bed, but her mind never left the edge of the cliff it had been clinging to since Saturday morning. 12-year-old Caleb, her only child, her last link to the man she'd loved and lost, lay still beneath the tangle of tubes and wires. His normally wild curls had been shaved in patches for surgery. A ventilator did the work his lungs could no longer manage alone. Monitors blinked and beeped in time with the fragile rhythm of his healing body, each sound a reminder of how close she'd come to losing him. The accident had been absurd in its cruelty. One moment, he was riding bikes with friends through the tree-lined trails of suburban Evanston. The next, a distracted driver and off-duty EMT of all people veered off the road, smashing into them like glass underfoot. Caleb had taken the worst of it. Skull fracture. Broken femur. Internal bleeding. It was a miracle he'd even made it to the operating room. Emma hadn't left his side since. Not for coffee. Not for air. Not even when the nurses pleaded with her to shower or rest. She couldn't. She was his mother. If she left, even for a second, something unspeakable might happen. And then her phone rang. She answered on the second buzz, hoping it was Dr. Patel with test results. Instead, the voice on the line was sharp, familiar, and chillingly composed. "Emma, you haven't forgotten that Brooke's birthday dinner is tomorrow, have you?" For a moment, she couldn't speak. "Mom, Caleb's in a coma." "Yes, I know, darling. And of course, we're all very worried. But the caterers are confirmed, and the photographer is flying in from New York. Brooke's turning 30, and I expect you to be here by 2 to help set up." Emma closed her eyes. "I'm not leaving him." There was a pause. Then, in that carefully measured tone Diane used when she was about to drop a hammer, came the words that cracked something in Emma wide open. "If you don't come, I will cut off the trust." Everything. The trust. The fund Ryan had established for Caleb before deploying. The one Diane had taken over as executor after his death, promising Emma it would always be there just in case. Emma's breath caught. "You're threatening me. Over a birthday party. I'm reminding you what loyalty looks like. Family doesn't vanish in a crisis." Emma almost laughed. "You mean like you vanished when Caleb was wheeled into surgery?" "That's not fair, Emma." "No," she said softly. "It's finally true." She ended the call without another word. Then she did something she hadn't done since the funeral. She deleted her mother's number. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall, soft and quiet over the hospital courtyard. Inside, the storm had just begun. Emma Matthews hadn't always been the family disappointment. As a child, she'd been eager, warm, a little clumsy but bright-eyed until her younger sister Brooke arrived like a spotlight and Emma became the shadow. Brooke played piano flawlessly by 6. She was prom queen, valedictorian, a real estate mogul before 30. Emma. She liked cameras, took up space, married a soldier, and according to Diane threw her life away. After Ryan's death in Afghanistan, Diane offered condolences wrapped in control. She moved Emma into an apartment she could manage, started handling Caleb's finances for convenience, and attended school functions like a silent, disapproving judge. It was all framed as generosity, but Emma knew the truth. Nothing her mother gave came without strings. Still, Emma had endured it all for Caleb. For stability. For peace. But as she stared at the screen where her mother's contact used to be, a terrifying truth settled over her. She wasn't just grieving her son's accident. She was grieving the family she had pretended to have. The illusion had shattered, and all that remained was the sickening clarity of who Diane truly was. She'd taken so much for the sake of harmony. Her pride. Her boundaries. Her silence. But she would not give her son. Not this time. She turned to Caleb, took his hand gently in hers, and whispered, "I'm still here, baby. And I'm not going anywhere." What she didn't know, what no doctor could have predicted, was that Caleb had heard that bell. And somewhere in the depths of his injured brain, he was clawing his way back to her. Dash. How far would you go to protect your child from your own family? Have you ever had to choose between peace and self-respect? When Caleb opens his eyes, everything will change, but not everyone will be ready for what he remembers. Read on in Part 2. The snow was still falling when Caleb moved. It was subtle, barely a flicker of his eyelids, but Emma saw it. She wasn't sure if it was real at first. Exhaustion played tricks on her, made hope look like truth and fear feel like prophecy. But then it happened again, unmistakable. His fingers twitched against hers, slow and searching, like a diver feeling their way toward the surface. Her breath caught. "Caleb," she whispered, rising from the chair. "It's Mom. If you can hear me, squeeze my hand." A pause. Then a faint but deliberate pressure. Emma gasped, tears spilling before she realized they'd formed. She slammed the nurse call button, her hands trembling, and within seconds, the room flooded with movement. Dr. Patel was paged. Monitors were adjusted. Neurological tests began. And through it all, Caleb's eyes fluttered open. Not fully. Not clearly. But enough to find her face. She leaned close, barely breathing. "I'm here," she said. "You came back to me." His lips parted, a rasp of breath escaping around a tube in his throat. He couldn't speak, but he didn't need to. The tears in his eyes mirrored hers. He remembered. The next few hours were a haze of cautious celebration. Dr. Patel explained that Caleb's awakening didn't mean the danger was over. There could be lasting effects, memory loss, or cognitive delays. But Emma didn't hear all of it. Not really. Her son was alive. He'd fought his way back, and that was all that mattered for now. But hope, like grief, can sharpen everything else. As the adrenaline faded, something deeper crept in, a quiet, gnawing dread. Because now she had to face what came next. Dash. They arrived the following morning. Uninvited. Emma had just helped Caleb sip water when the door opened without a knock. Diane entered first, immaculate in a cream wool coat, not a hair out of place despite the wind outside. Brooke followed a step behind, holding a Starbucks cup and wearing guilt like an accessory visible, but optional. "There you are," Diane said, as if Emma had been hiding. "We've been trying to reach you for days." Emma stood instinctively in front of Caleb's bed, shielding him without thinking. "I turned my phone off," she said evenly. "He just woke up last night." Her mother's eyes flicked to Caleb, softening for a fleeting moment. "Hello, sweetheart. You scared us all. But you're awake now, and that's what matters." Then, to Emma, "We need to talk. Outside." "No," Emma said. "I'm not leaving him." It's okay, Mom, Caleb rasped, his voice still raw. I'm okay. He didn't know yet what had happened outside that hospital room. Emma pressed a kiss to his forehead and whispered, 5 minutes. I'll be right back. In the hallway, the air shifted. You've caused a lot of pain, Diane said coldly. Brooke's birthday was a disaster. The guests kept asking where you were. I had to make excuses. The whole evening was humiliating. Emma blinked. Caleb was in a coma. And now he's not, Diane snapped. So all that drama staying at his bedside like a martyr was clearly unnecessary. You could have shown up for an hour. You made a choice. And now there are consequences. Emma's jaw clenched. You mean the trust fund? Diane nodded without shame. Your father and I have spoken to the lawyer. We're rewriting everything. If you're going to continue distancing yourself from this family, then don't expect its benefits. Brooke stepped forward, as if to soften the blow. Mom's just upset. We all are. You acted impulsively. Maybe if you apologize. I won't, Emma said, the words sharp and clean. Not for staying with my son. There was a long silence. You've always been so dramatic, Diane finally said. Ever since you married that soldier. You chose a path beneath you, and now look where it's led. Emma stared at her mother, something ancient inside her rising to the surface, something too long buried under guilt and politeness. Ryan died protecting this country. And I've raised Caleb alone for 7 years while you belittled every choice I made. So don't talk to me about sacrifice. Diane's expression didn't change. But Brooke's eyes dropped, unable to hold her sister's gaze. Then Diane played her final card. If you continue this rebellion, you'll be alone, Emma. No support. No safety net. You're a single mother with a sick child. Think very carefully before burning this bridge. Emma's voice was low, calm. If I have to choose between my son's well-being and your approval, I'll choose him every time. She turned away, back toward the room, but stopped at the door. You can visit him for 5 minutes. Be kind. Be quiet. And don't say anything to make him feel like this is his fault. Because if you do, I swear to God, that will be the last time you ever see him. She didn't wait for a response. Later that night, after the nurses had dimmed the lights and Caleb had drifted into another medicated sleep, Emma sat in the dark, staring at the wall across from his bed. The beeping of the machines was steady, almost comforting now. A metronome marking survival. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from her father. I know things are messy. But your mother's actions come from fear, not hate. We don't always show love the right way. Emma stared at the screen. Then slowly, almost without thinking, she began typing. That's the difference, Dad. Real love doesn't come with punishment. She hit send, her hands steady. Then she turned off her phone again. What if love that demands obedience isn't love at all but control in disguise? When a secret from Caleb's past surfaces, everything Emma thought she knew will be tested. Keep reading to discover the truth that could fracture their world all over again. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat curled in the vinyl chair by Caleb's bed, her knees hugged tightly to her chest, watching his chest rise and fall in slow, measured rhythm. His eyelids fluttered now and then, shadows of dreams she couldn't enter. In the quiet, she let herself cry. Not loud, not broken, but steady. The kind of crying that came from somewhere bone deep, where grief and love and relief blurred into one unbearable ache. She thought of Ryan. How he'd looked holding their newborn son for the first time, hands that had learned to kill, cradling life like it was something holy. I don't know how to do this alone, she'd whispered at his funeral. But she had. And now she had to do something harder. Let go. Not of Caleb. Not ever. But of the illusion that family meant safety. That love was supposed to hurt. That her mother's cold grip was something she had to endure for the sake of appearances. That morning, when Caleb stirred awake again, fully this time, she smiled through new tears. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. "Welcome back." His throat was sore from the ventilator, his words faint, but he tried anyway. "Were you here the whole time?" "Every second." He blinked at her, and then, with a bravery he must have learned from his father, asked, "Is Grandma mad at you?" Emma swallowed hard. "Yeah. She is. Because you stayed with me. Because I chose you," she said. Caleb looked away, chewing his chapped lip. "She said stuff before. That we don't have enough. That it's your fault." Emma felt something crack inside. Not because she hadn't known, but because he had. He'd always known. "She's wrong," she said softly. "But I let her make me feel small. For too long. I'm sorry if that made you feel like we weren't enough." Caleb turned back to her, voice no louder than a breath. "We are." That afternoon, a social worker from the hospital knocked gently on the door and stepped in with a clipboard and the calm, practiced voice of someone used to navigating emotional minefields. "Ms. Matthews, I've been asked to follow up regarding a potential guardianship review." Emma frowned. "A what?" "There was an anonymous call to child services, claiming you were emotionally unfit, that your son was left alone during a critical recovery period." Emma's heart froze. It was her mother. It had to be. "They'll likely schedule a home visit," the social worker continued. "It's routine. We're not assuming anything. But the timing is unusual." Emma stared out the window, the ache in her chest returning full force. Her mother hadn't just taken away the trust fund. She was trying to take Caleb. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, Emma wrote a letter. Not to Diane. She'd burned that bridge, and she would not rebuild it with matches soaked in guilt. The letter was for Caleb. For a future day when he would ask why he didn't see his grandparents anymore. Why family photos had faces he barely remembered. She wrote about choices. About survival. About how love that holds you hostage isn't love at all. About how sometimes protecting your child means becoming someone you never planned to be. She ended it with a promise. "I will never let anyone make you feel like you are not enough. You are my everything. And we are more than enough, just the two of us." Dash. In the weeks that followed, Caleb's recovery surprised even the doctors. He walked with a slight limp. He needed memory exercises. But his mind was sharp, his sense of humor intact, and his heart as big as ever. The trust fund never returned. The inheritance disappeared into silence. Diane never came back to the hospital. Brooke sent one final message of vague apology wrapped in self-defense. Emma didn't answer. But she didn't need them. Not anymore. Because something new had begun to form. Jake's parents took Caleb to robotics club every Thursday. Emma's co-workers showed up with home-cooked meals and Target gift cards. A couple from their apartment building, newlyweds with no children, offered to dog sit anytime Caleb needed a break. It was a different kind of family. The kind you choose. The kind that doesn't count favors, or keep score, or make you beg for approval you'll never earn. And on a Sunday morning, nearly 6 months after the accident, Emma woke to the sound of Caleb laughing in the kitchen. He was trying to make pancakes, and half the batter was on the floor. She walked in, saw him in his oversized hoodie, hair tousled, eyes sparkling, and felt a flood of emotion so strong it brought her to her knees. "Mom," he said, alarmed. "Did I mess up?" "No," she whispered. You saved everything. Dash. 1 year later, Emma stood in a sunlit park, camera in hand. Caleb, taller now, held a paper robot he'd designed for a school showcase. She snapped a picture capturing not perfection, but something better. Truth. She'd been asked to speak at a parent-teacher fundraiser that night. About resilience. About family. And standing backstage, palms sweaty, heart racing, she saw a face in the crowd that made her freeze. Her father. He wasn't with Diane. When her talk ended, he waited by the door. You were right, he said quietly. About everything. I stayed too quiet for too long. Emma didn't say anything. I'm proud of you, Emma. She looked at him then, not as a daughter begging for scraps of love, but as a woman who had learned to stand without it. Thank you, she said. Not with bitterness. Not with need. Just peace. They didn't hug. But they didn't turn away. It was enough. Later that night, Caleb crawled into bed beside her, just like he had after Ryan's funeral. Mom. Yeah, honey. Do you think we're lucky? Emma looked at him, at the scar that ran just beneath his hairline, at the smile that still lit up rooms. Yes, she whispered. I think we're the luckiest people in the world. What part of Emma and Caleb's journey touched you the most? If you loved this story, comment 100 below. Where are you watching from? Share this video with a friend who needs to believe in chosen family. Thank you for watching Life Stories.